The strangest thing about letting someone go is realizing you don't hate them. You thought you would, after everything they did, after the disappointment, after the promises they broke, after the nights you cried yourself to sleep, wondering why you weren't enough. You thought healing would require anger. You thought one day you'd wake up and finally see them as the villain. Someone you could blame. Someone you could erase. Someone whose name would mean nothing. But tonight, you realize something completely different. You still remember them. You still remember the way they laughed. You remember their voice. You remember the little things nobody else noticed. And somehow, you don't hate them anymore. You simply don't want them back. And that difference is everything. Her name was Claire. For almost 3 years, she believed that letting someone go meant becoming angry enough to stop caring. She had tried. She made lists of everything he had done wrong. She wrote angry messages and never sent them. She deleted photographs, then restored them. She blocked his number, then unblocked it. She told her friends she was completely finished, then went home and cried because she wasn't. She thought healing was supposed to feel like victory. Instead, it felt like grief. Because Daniel hadn't been a monster. That was what made everything harder. He had hurt her, but he had also loved her. At least, in the beginning. He had made her laugh when she was having the worst day. He had remembered how she liked her coffee. He had held her hand in hospital waiting rooms. He had once driven 2 hours just to see her for 20 minutes. There had been real tenderness, and there had also been real pain. He became distant. He stopped communicating. He made promises he couldn't keep. He said things that stayed inside her long after the arguments ended. And, eventually, Claire had to choose between loving him and protecting herself. She chose herself. But choosing yourself doesn't mean your heart immediately agrees. The night everything changed was almost ordinary. Claire was cleaning her bedroom. She found an old sweater. Daniel's sweater. It was dark gray, soft, a little too big. She remembered wearing it on cold mornings. She remembered sitting on the couch with her legs tucked underneath her. She remembered Daniel saying, "Keep it." And she had, for years. She held it against her chest. Then she sat on the edge of the bed. For a moment, she thought about putting it back in the closet. Maybe another day. Maybe when she was stronger. Then she asked herself a question. How long am I going to keep saving things for a version of me that doesn't exist anymore? She looked at the sweater. And for the first time, she didn't feel anger. She felt gratitude. Not gratitude for the pain. Gratitude for the fact that once, she had loved someone deeply, and that love had taught her something. Claire had spent months trying to answer one question. How could someone who loved me hurt me so much? But maybe she had been asking the wrong question. People can love you and still be incapable of loving you in the way you need. People can have good intentions and still cause damage. People can be important chapters in your life without being meant to stay until the final page. That doesn't make the good memories fake. it doesn't make the bad memories insignificant. It simply means both can exist. The relationship can have been beautiful and still have become unhealthy. The person can have mattered and still need to be released. You can appreciate what someone gave you without accepting what they took from you. That night, Claire opened an old box. Inside were photographs, concert tickets, a restaurant receipt, a birthday card, and a tiny paper star. Daniel had folded it during one of their first dates. She remembered laughing because it looked terrible. She had kept it anyway. She picked it up, and something inside her softened. She didn't want to burn it. She didn't want to destroy every memory. She didn't want to pretend the relationship never happened. She simply wanted it to stop controlling her. That was the difference. She didn't need to hate him to leave him behind. She didn't need to make him terrible to justify walking away. She didn't need revenge. She needed peace. Maybe you've been trying to heal the same way. Maybe you've been waiting for the anger to arrive. Maybe you've been telling yourself, once I hate them enough, I'll finally move on. But what if you don't have to? What if you can say, you hurt me, and also, I hope you heal? What if you can say, I loved you, and also, I cannot be with you anymore? What if you can remember the beautiful moments without using them as an excuse to return to the painful ones? That isn't weakness. That's emotional maturity. That's letting go without needing to destroy what once mattered. Claire had one final conversation with Daniel. Not in person. A message arrived late one evening. I hope you're doing okay. She stared at it. The old Claire would have read hidden meanings into every word. Does he miss me? Does he want me back? Is this an invitation? Is he finally changing? But the woman she had become didn't need to decode it. She simply knew. She could care about someone without reopening the relationship. So she wrote, I am doing better. I genuinely hope you are too. Then she stopped. She didn't ask another question. She didn't say she missed him. She didn't explain everything she had been through. She didn't demand an apology. She didn't tell him how much he had hurt her. She had spent too long waiting for him to understand. Now she understood herself. She put the phone down. And that was it. No dramatic ending. No final confrontation. No perfect goodbye. Just a quiet decision. Later that night, Claire took the gray sweater out of the closet. She folded it carefully, not angrily, not dramatically. She placed it inside a donation bag. Then she held the bag for a moment. Her eyes filled with tears because letting go of the sweater felt like letting go of something much bigger. It felt like admitting, this part of my life is over. And endings are painful, even when they're necessary. She whispered, thank you. She didn't know whether she was speaking to Daniel or to the version of herself who had loved him. Maybe both. Then she placed the bag by the door and went to bed. That night, Claire couldn't sleep. She looked at the ceiling, Her mind replayed old memories. The first date, the first kiss, the first argument. The last argument. The last time they said goodbye. For a moment, she felt the familiar ache. Then she realized something. The memories were still there, but they were no longer asking her to do anything. They were simply memories. And maybe that was healing. Not forgetting, not erasing, not becoming indifferent. Just allowing the past to exist without constantly reaching into the present. If you've been listening quietly tonight because there's someone you are trying to let go of, I want you to hear this. You don't have to hate them. You don't have to call them evil. You don't have to convince yourself they meant nothing. You don't have to rewrite every beautiful memory. You can simply accept that something mattered and still ended. You can love the person they were and refuse to return to the person they became. You can forgive them without trusting them again. You can wish them happiness from far away. And you can choose yourself without making them your enemy. That is freedom. If this story feels like it was written for a part of your life you've never been able to explain, subscribe to this channel now. Seriously. Don't wait until another difficult night brings you back here by accident. This channel is for the quiet hours, when the world is asleep and your mind starts replaying everything. For heartbreak, for people you still miss, for endings that never felt complete, for the nights when you need someone to tell you that you're not weak for still feeling. Subscribe and stay with us, because we're building a quiet place for people who are healing privately. You don't need to explain yourself here. You don't need to pretend you're over it. Just listen, breathe, and let yourself heal one night at a time. A few weeks later, Claire walked past a cafe she and Daniel used to visit. She stopped outside. For a moment, she could see everything. The table near the window, the 2 cups of coffee, the way he used to lean forward when she was telling a story. She smiled. Then she kept walking. She didn't go inside, not because she was afraid, because she didn't need to. The memory had stopped being a doorway. It had become a photograph, something she could look at without stepping back into it. That was when Claire finally understood what letting go actually meant. It wasn't saying, "I never loved you." It wasn't saying, "You meant nothing." It wasn't saying, "I hate you." It was saying, "You mattered to me. You hurt me. I learned from it. And now I'm choosing a life that doesn't require you." There was no hatred in that, only acceptance. And acceptance can be quieter than anger, but it is stronger. Anger still keeps you emotionally connected. You are still arguing with them, still proving something, still imagining what you wish you had said, still giving them space inside your mind. Peace is different. Peace says, "I don't need you to understand anymore. I don't need you to regret it. I don't need you to come back. I don't need you to see what you lost. I just need to keep going." 1 year later, Claire found the tiny paper star again. It had been sitting inside the old box. She held it in her palm. She remembered the person who had folded it. She remembered the person she had been when she received it, and she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Warmth. Not longing. Not sadness. Warmth. She realized she could remember Daniel without wanting Daniel. That was the moment she knew she was free. She didn't need to hate him anymore. She didn't need to forgive everything either. She could simply leave the story where it belonged, in the past. And maybe that's where you are tonight. Maybe you're exhausted from trying to convince yourself that you don't care. Maybe you still miss them sometimes. Maybe a song can still bring everything back. Maybe their birthday still feels strange. Maybe you still wonder what would have happened if they had changed. Maybe a small part of you still wishes things could have been different. That's okay. You don't have to force yourself into indifference. Healing isn't becoming someone who never cared. Healing is becoming someone who can care without abandoning themselves. So tonight, if their name comes into your mind, don't fight it. Just notice it and tell yourself, I remember. It mattered. It hurt. And it's over. Then breathe. You don't have to solve the past tonight. You don't have to figure out whether they were good or bad. You don't have to decide whether they deserved forgiveness. You only need to give yourself permission to stop carrying them into every tomorrow. Claire placed the last photograph inside the box. She closed the lid. Then she wrote one sentence on top. Thank you for the memories. I choose the future. She put the box on the highest shelf, not hidden, not displayed, just there, a part of her history. Then she turned off the light. She climbed into bed. For the first time in years, she didn't imagine what Daniel was doing. She didn't wonder if he missed her. She didn't wonder whether he regretted leaving. She didn't wonder whether he had changed. She simply closed her eyes and whispered, I hope you're okay. Then, and I hope I'm okay too. That second sentence made her smile, because for so long she had wished him well, while secretly wishing herself back into his life. Now she could wish him well, and still choose herself. That was the freedom she had been searching for. So, if tonight is the night you finally let someone go, don't force yourself to hate them. You don't need hatred to create distance. You don't need anger to justify your boundaries. You don't need revenge to prove that you survived. You can simply release them. Release the conversations you never had. Release the apology you may never receive. Release the version of them you keep hoping will return. Release the future you imagined. Release the question of whether they regret losing you. And most importantly, release yourself from the responsibility of carrying what they couldn't handle. You loved them. That was real. You were hurt. That was real too. And now you're allowed to choose peace. Not because they deserve it, because you do. If you're still here listening, subscribe before you leave. Make this channel the place you return to when the night gets heavy again. When you miss someone. When you're tempted to text them. When an old memory suddenly hurts. When you need to hear that letting go doesn't mean you stopped caring. Subscribe now and stay with us through the next chapter of your healing. There will be more stories, more quiet nights, more reminders that you are not the only person trying to put their heart back together when nobody is watching. And when another difficult night comes, come back. Put your headphones on. Turn the lights down. Close your eyes and let yourself listen. Claire never hated Daniel. She simply stopped needing him. And perhaps that is one of the most peaceful endings a person can reach. Not, I wish you had never existed, but I'm grateful for what was good. I'm honest about what hurt.
And I'm no longer waiting for you. That's letting go. That's healing. That's choosing yourself without turning someone else into a villain. And tonight, if there is someone you need to release, you can begin here. You don't have to send a message. You don't have to burn the photographs. You don't have to delete every memory. Just take one quiet breath and say, I loved you. I forgive myself. I release you. And I choose me. Then let the room become quiet. Let the memories fade into the background. Let tomorrow remain unwritten. Because you don't need to hate the person you're leaving behind. You only need to love the person you're becoming enough.